Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service. I thank you for taking the time to listen in today. This is my website homepage, pprsus.com. And you'll notice if you go down the homepage, I will have one area that will fluctuate, whether it's first or second, but it deals with federal courts and Bureau of Prison news you can use, and I update this pretty much weekly. So we're going to jump over to this particular page, federal courts and BOP news you can use, updated weekly. And I'm going to drop down quickly. CaseMine. This is a site that reviews cases, and this is going to mostly, it's going to be three of them are regarding First Step Back credits. First Step credits accrue from the statutory sentence commencement. The First Step Back time credit relief requires proof. First Step Back credit eligibility begins when the sentence commences, and then this one here is compassionate release regarding a negotiated life sentence. And so I'm going to jump through these now. Miles versus Bowers. First Step Back time credits accrue from statutory sentence of commencement, not when one arises in the Bureau of Prisons. And this has to deal with someone who was incarcerated for 9 months, 10 months, under a year in a federal state, and rather in a state facility, but he was taking the First Step Back credits while he was there, and the Bureau of Prison refused to grant them. And so this legal reasoning came down, and it said essentially, non-federal location does not categorically bar accrual where participation is verified. And he was able to verify his participation both from his side as well as from the state prison side. If you'd like to learn just a little bit more, because I'm not an attorney, there's a link right here where you can actually see the entire case. And essentially it said he was serving a combined 300-month sentence, and he went through the administrative remedy process, and then finally 2241, which was a habeas challenge, because the BOP refused to award him the First Step earned time credits he had performed while he was in jail, housed for about 15 months. So I was off in the amount of time. It's a very big deal because you have options. The Bureau of Prisons can try and deny, but you're able now, with this information, you have precedence. The second, Harris versus Warren, 2241 again. And to understand 2241, there's a grievance process that the Federal Bureau of Prisons wants everyone to employ. It's called the administrative remedy process. They fight it every step of the way, but it's a process that requires your attention to a calendar and going from a BP9 to a BP10 to a BP11. And after you've done all of that and you have it documented, you're able to do what's called 2241, which goes to the court. But they're going to want to see proof that you went through the process, which is why you have copied, or you have the pages verified where you can present them with the 2241 showing that you've gone through the actual process. First Step Back time credits relief requires proof of actual qualifying participation, and the participation is not a formality. Credits here are owned through action. Conclusion: the prisoner cannot obtain a 2241 for miscalculated credits without proving participation in qualifying programming to earn credits. The 10th Circuit emphasized that entitlement relies on the evidence of earned credits. And so we can jump here as I did initially. And so this is the actual case. And so you need to be able to show that you went ahead and you took these courses, or you took the First Step Back classes, and that is done. The court emphasized that these First Step Back time credits are awarded for actual participation in qualifying programs. And so while the BOP record showed no relevant assessment, that did not matter. He had actually taken them. Next is, well, go in order. Compassionate release, a negotiated life sentence that avoided the death penalty, is not unusually long under USS 1B1.13 B6. Again, the unusually long sentence theory. I'm not an attorney. If this fits you, you want to go ahead and go through this with your attorney, with your counsel. But the United States versus Giuliotero upholds a restrained approach to compassionate release denials, indicating that brief reasoning is sufficient per Rita versus Chavez. A negotiated life sentence is unlikely to be seen as an unusually long sentence. The decision emphasized the importance of 3553A, especially where public safety concerns are significant. A lot of this can be addressed, even though you're not aware of what's going to happen later, but before you get to your pre-sentence interview, if it's possible, and you're incarcerated, you want to understand that your narrative or your background is going to play, and kind of your own backstory is going to be very important with regards to 3553A. And again, as with the unusually long sentence, and this goes through a negotiated life sentence that avoided a death penalty is now not unusually long under this particular USSC coding. But this is more for you and your attorney than for me to pass judgment on at this point. Lastly, first step back, time credit eligibility begins when the sentencing commences. And post-Looper, which is the case, right, courts must independently test the BOP's successful participation rule. In other words, the courts need to provide parental supervision to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Statutory anchor sentence commitment. In other words, this eligibility begins when the sentencing commences. And so even though you may not be taken direct to a federal prison, but if you're in a county jail or a state prison on your way to a federal prison, you are allowed by the courts to earn First Step Act time credits eligibility towards potentially early release, depending on how long your sentence is. And so in this case, Benson versus the warden of FSA Eldridge clarified First Step Act time credit litigation in the Fourth Circuit. It ruled that district courts cannot invoke Chevron to support the BOP successful participation criteria and must determine the statute's best meaning. The decision emphasized that the First Step Act credit eligibility starts when a sentence commences or begins under 18 U.S.C. 3585A, not when the inmate arrives at a BOP facility. So this is a very big deal. I hope you found this helpful. We've reviewed here under case mind of several cases where credits accrue from statutory sentence commencement. 2241 First Step Back credit relief requires proof. Compassionate release and negotiated life sentence. And First Step Back credit eligibility begins when the sentence commences. I thank you for taking the time to listen or to tune in today. And I hope you have a great day and stay safe. Any questions, please feel free to either call me 240-888-7778 or engage my services or just to get some information. I hope you have a good day. I thank you for listening.